In the evolving landscape of Nigeria's Pentecostal movement, few stories have generated as much quiet tension and speculation as the one surrounding Bishop David Abioye and Bishop David Oyedepo.
Further to this, someone may ask, after retirement, what next? This commission has a provision for elongated service scheme.
At the center of this unfolding drama is a surprising development that many within the Living Faith family never imagined. The claim that Bishop David Abioye quietly declined Bishop David Oyedepo's invitation to preach at Shiloh 2025.
Good news, Shiloh 2025 comes up December 9 to 14, and the theme is breaking new grounds.
For decades, Bishop Abioye had been one of the most recognized faces on the Shiloh altar. His teachings, his discipline, and his loyalty were considered foundational pillars within the ministry. So the idea that he would pass up an opportunity to return to that familiar global platform raises questions that go far beyond organizational decisions. This quiet rejection did not come with public statements, confrontations, or open disagreements. Instead, it emerged through silence, timing, and actions, particularly the strategic launch of a 14-day program that runs straight through the dates of Shiloh 2025.
Shiloh 2025 comes up December 9 to 14.
The situation has left many observers asking deeper questions. Is Bishop Abioye asserting his independence after years of dedicated service? Is this a subtle response to how his retirement unfolded? Or is this simply a new spiritual direction, one guided by conviction rather than history? In this episode, we begin to explore the layers behind this unexpected turn, tracing the history, the relationships, the institutional decisions, and the evolving dynamics that may have led to this moment. Not to take sides, not to assign blame, but to understand the complexity of a situation that touches leadership, loyalty, legacy, and the shifting structure of one of Africa's biggest Pentecostal movements. This is not just a story of two men. It is a story of transitions, endings, beginnings, and the unpredictable ripple effects that follow. Background: Abioye and Oyedepo's brotherhood. To understand why this moment is so significant, we must step back more than 40 years, to the origins of a partnership that helped shape one of the most influential ministries on the continent. For over 4 decades, Bishop David Abioye stood as Bishop David Oyedepo's strongest ally, confidant, and second-in-command. Their bond was more than administrative. It was spiritual, deeply personal, and rooted in the early days of the ministry when resources were scarce and the future was uncertain. While Bishop Oyedepo was seen as the apostolic visionary and founder, Bishop Abioye became the stabilizer, the organizer, and the enforcer of order. He embodied the discipline and structure that helped Living Faith Church maintain consistency across thousands of branches worldwide. His long-standing role as vice president was not just a title. It represented decades of loyalty, sacrifice, and behind-the-scenes stewardship. Members saw him as the principal support beam of the ministry's massive global structure. Many pastors within the commission viewed him as the embodiment of continuity, integrity, and unwavering commitment. Together, the two men built an institution that shaped millions of believers worldwide. From Kaduna to Lagos, from Canaanland to Abuja, their partnership defined the DNA of the ministry: faith, excellence, diligence, and a relentless pursuit of church growth. This is why today's events carry such emotional weight. The relationship between these two leaders was not merely professional. For many members, it was symbolic of unity, stability, and spiritual order. That is what makes the current distance, the silence, and the conflicting schedules so striking. For a relationship so historically strong to now seem strained, or at least significantly altered, naturally creates questions. Not accusations, but questions that arise when long-standing structures begin to shift. And it is this background that makes Abioye's choices today resonate deeply within and outside the Living Faith family. The retirement: a policy or a message?
Some things here just to show you before we go to the blessing. This is our administrative policy, 1998, reviewed 2001. This is Administrative Policy Handbook 2003. This is the mandate 2012 and reviewed this year after 12 years. We are by divine orchestration, operated by divine order, which has kept this ministry on her feet till tomorrow.
The turning point in this story began in 2024, during Bishop David Oyedepo's 70th birthday celebration, an event that was meant to mark a milestone in leadership, legacy, and the future of the ministry. It was during this period that Bishop Abioye, alongside other senior pastors, was officially retired in line with Living Faith Church's newly reinforced retirement policy. On paper, the policy appeared procedural, a standard organizational measure intended to ensure generational transition. Retirement policies exist in many institutions, and Living Faith Church had openly communicated its intent to reposition for the future. However, the public reaction to Abioye's retirement was far from simple. For many members, the news was unexpected and emotionally unsettling. Questions spread rapidly across internal circles and social platforms. How could the man who served as vice president for decades be retired so abruptly? Why did the announcement feel so formal and quiet, without the elaborate honor some people expected? Others defended the process, arguing that institutions must evolve, and that transitions, no matter how sensitive, are crucial for longevity. They emphasized that retirement did not imply dishonor, and that Bishop Abioye remained a spiritual giant worthy of respect. But even with all the explanations and defenses, the reactions were mixed. Confusion, disappointment, speculation, and attempts to interpret the true meaning behind the decision all flowed simultaneously. Many assumed Abioye would remain deeply connected to the ministry. After all, his loyalty had never been in question. It seemed natural that he would continue as a father figure, advisor, or mentor within the system. Some even believed he would still be a major voice at Shiloh, as always. Yet, behind the scenes, something was shifting. Instead of simply settling into retirement within Living Faith Church, Bishop Abioye made a decision that shocked both supporters and critics. He launched his own ministry, Living Word Conquerors Global Assembly.
Praise the Lord. I'd like us, before we receive God's word this morning, to take this very clear statement, which is introducing us to what is commencing this morning. Understanding the fact that known to God are his works from the beginning of the world, as stated in Acts 15:18. There are things that happen that God has ordained. That's what the scriptures emphasizes. And with passing moment towards the end of the year 2024, the Lord started unveiling to me his divine purpose at different times, beginning with the mandate of Global Interdenominational Hour of Revival, Ministers and Leadership Conference, Sunday evening service, which is today migrating to Sunday morning service. This I count to be an undeserved privilege given by election of grace according to Ephesians 3:8. On this final note, and to the glory of God, this assembly with the name Living Word Conquerors Global Assembly is hereby inaugurated this day, Sunday, 4th May 2025.
This move immediately reframed the retirement conversation. Was the policy purely organizational, or did it reveal deeper tensions? Or was Abioye simply following divine direction, independent of institutional structures? The answers depend entirely on interpretation. But one fact remains clear: the retirement was not the end of the story. It was the beginning of an entirely new chapter, one that would lead to unexpected decisions, symbolic absences, overlapping program dates, and now, the claim that Abioye quietly turned down an invitation to return to Shiloh 2025. A moment that raises one question above all others. Is this the result of policy, personal conviction, silent disagreement, or a new spiritual path being carved out? The rest of the story begins from here. Abioye's unexpected move, founding his own ministry. As the news of Bishop David Abioye's retirement settled, many within the Living Faith family assumed he would remain a spiritual pillar in the background, offering counsel, stability, and continuity. But in a move that few anticipated, Bishop Abioye did the opposite. He launched his own ministry, Living Word Conquerors Global Assembly. The announcement sent shockwaves across the church world. For many members of Living Faith Church, especially those who had been under Abioye's leadership in Abuja for years, this was not just a development, it was a turning point. Seeing the man who had served with loyalty for over 4 decades step out to establish his own spiritual platform raised questions about what had been happening behind the scenes. The reactions were sharply divided. On one side were those who celebrated the move. They viewed it as an act of courage, a long overdue expression of independence, and perhaps even a response to what they saw as an unceremonious retirement. Supporters argued that a man who had poured so much into ministry deserved the right to begin a new chapter, to follow divine direction without institutional limitations. On the other side, however, were critics who saw the move differently. For them, launching a new ministry appeared to contradict the legacy of unity and loyalty that Living Faith Church had preached for decades. They interpreted it as a quiet rebellion, a form of departure that risked sending mixed signals to younger pastors and members. Yet beyond the debates, one reality became undeniable. Living Word Conquerors Global Assembly began to grow rapidly, particularly in Abuja, Abioye's long-standing base of influence. Members who had spent years under his pastoral leadership found themselves drawn into the new ministry. His reputation for discipline, spiritual depth, and consistency transferred naturally into the new environment. The launch marked a clear shift. After 40 years of partnership, Abioye was no longer just the trusted second-in-command within an established structure. He was now building something of his own. Something separate. Something new. And with that came a ripple effect that no one could ignore. A symbolic absence. Oyedepo's non-appearances. The inauguration of Living Word Conquerors Global Assembly was a major event. Leaders from various ministries attended, offering support and giving Abioye's new work a public spiritual blessing. The atmosphere was charged with celebration, anticipation, and the excitement of a fresh beginning. But beneath the celebration was a notable silence, one that spoke louder than any speech delivered that day. Neither Bishop David Oyedepo nor any prominent Living Faith pastor attended the inauguration. The absence was not explained, not addressed, and not officially acknowledged. Yet to observers, it was unmistakable. For a man who had served as vice president of the ministry for over 40 years, one might have expected at least a symbolic appearance. Even if not to preach, perhaps a representation from the leadership. A gesture. A handshake. A blessing. Instead, what the world saw was distance. And because both camps remained silent, the space between them became filled with speculation. Was this absence a sign of disapproval? Was it a strategic decision to avoid giving public endorsement to a new ministry started by a recently retired leader? Or was it simply a matter of different directions, professional and spiritual, now unfolding independently? Supporters of Abioye interpreted the absence as evidence that his decision to launch his own ministry might not have been fully embraced by the institution he served. Critics argued that the absence was appropriate, given that Abioye had stepped out of the system. But regardless of interpretation, that single moment, marked by who attended and who did not, became a symbolic line in the sand. It revealed more about the evolving dynamic between both leaders than any public statement could have expressed. The anniversary sign, present at Daystar, absent at Abioye's event. 1 year after launching his interdenominational program titled Hour of Revival, Bishop Abioye marked the anniversary with a large gathering, another significant milestone intended to solidify the identity and influence of his new spiritual assignment. Again, many watched to see whether Bishop Oyedepo would attend. Whether this event would bring a symbolic gesture of goodwill. Whether the silence between both men would finally break. But once again, Bishop Oyedepo was absent. And this absence did not go unnoticed. Just days before the anniversary, Bishop Oyedepo was seen attending the 30th anniversary celebration of Daystar Christian Center, hosted by Pastor Sam Adeyemi.
There's a root of bitterness springing up in you, trouble you. The man doesn't even know. You are troubling yourself by yourself.
Pictures and video clips circulated across social media, showing Oyedepo celebrating with the Daystar family, extending warm words, blessings, and ministerial support. For many observers, the contrast became a talking point. Why attend an external ministry's major event, yet be absent at the anniversary of someone who spent 40 years as your second-in-command? Did it signal a complete institutional separation? Was it simply a matter of scheduling? Or was it a way of sending an indirect message? To some, Oyedepo's presence at Daystar symbolized openness, grace, and unity within the broader body of Christ, proving that he is not opposed to engaging with other ministries. To others, his absence from Abioye's event suggested that something deeper was happening between the two leaders. Social media discussions ranged from mild curiosity to intense speculation. Some saw it as confirmation that the relationship had cooled significantly. Others insisted that spiritual leaders often make decisions based on divine direction rather than human expectations. Yet the combination of two events, attending Daystar and missing Abioye's anniversary, became another quiet marker in this unfolding story. A sign that the paths of both men, once inseparable, were now moving in clearly different directions. Not out of hostility, not out of public conflict, but through decisions, timing, and appearances that quietly reveal how much has changed. The offer, a path back to Shiloh.
Further to this, someone may ask, after retirement, what next? This commission has a provision for elongated service scheme, which is an opportunity for those who want to continue in their services in this commission. And interested retirees have applied under this scheme. And up to now, over 31 retirees have been enlisted in that scheme, to the glory of God, and still counting.
Behind the scenes, long before the public began speculating about tensions, a quiet development reportedly took place. According to insiders familiar with the structure of Living Faith Church, Bishop David Abioye was extended a private invitation. The offer was simple but symbolic, to return to the Shiloh altar and minister once again, just as he had faithfully done for many years. For decades, the Shiloh platform had been one of the highest stages of his ministry. Every December, millions around the world listened as Abioye brought messages of faith, strength, and spiritual clarity. His presence on the Shiloh altar had become a familiar voice, a stabilizing force, and a yearly anchor for countless believers. The idea of bringing him back was not merely logistical. It carried emotional, institutional, and symbolic weight. To those aware of the conversation, the offer looked like a gesture of reconciliation, a chance to show unity, a way to honor years of service. It also seemed to present an opportunity to maintain continuity and prevent the perception of division. For many observers inside the system, the expectation was straightforward: Abioye would accept. He would stand once again at Shiloh, positioned in his familiar role as one of the spiritual generals in the house. It seemed like a natural step, a path toward restoring the long-standing rhythm of ministry partnership. But what happened next surprised everyone watching closely. The rejection, a silent but loud message. Despite the opportunity to return to the Shiloh platform and reinforce unity, Bishop Abioye chose a different path. He quietly declined the offer. No press release. No public statement. No confrontation. His answer came not through words, but through action. Instead of preparing to minister at Shiloh 2025, he launched his own 14-day program, scheduled from the 1st to the 14th of December. A program that directly overlaps with Shiloh, which runs from the 9th to the 14th. This choice immediately became one of the most analyzed decisions in recent Nigerian church history. The question on everyone's mind was simple: why? Was this overlap a coincidence, merely a matter of planning? Was it strategic, meant to solidify his ministry's identity and momentum? Was it a quiet rejection of an institution he had served for decades? Or was it a sign of deep conviction, a belief that his new assignment must take full priority, even over Shiloh? Because no explanation was given, observers were left to interpret the silence. Some see the decision as a declaration of independence, a way of saying that his new ministry is not an extension of the old one, but a separate mandate entirely. Others interpret it as a quiet message to his followers, that their spiritual journey must now flow through the new work, not through a return to the old structure. And then there are those who believe the overlap is intentional, not confrontational. They see it as a natural progression for a leader establishing a fresh foundation. Whatever the truth is, one thing is certain: declining the Shiloh invitation marked a turning point. It made it clear that the paths of both leaders, once intertwined for over 40 years, are now moving further apart. What this means for the church landscape. The unfolding dynamic between Bishop David Abioye and Bishop David Oyedepo has become more than a story about two men. It is gradually reshaping conversations across the Nigerian Pentecostal landscape. For decades, the Living Faith system was built on stability, consistency, and an unmistakable hierarchy. Abioye was the second-in-command whose presence signified continuity. His withdrawal from the system and rise as an independent leader disrupts that long-established pattern. This shift has generated new trends across membership lines. Some long-time living faith members now identify more strongly with Abioye's voice than with the institution itself. Many who were nurtured under his leadership feel an emotional loyalty that goes beyond titles or structures. On the other side, there are members firmly committed to the living faith vision who view this separation as a normal leadership transition. Meanwhile, neutral observers see something else unfolding: the rise of two influential platforms existing simultaneously in December, a period historically dominated by Shiloh alone. This dual presence introduces three major possibilities. First, a quiet rivalry for influence, even if unintended. Second, a diversification of spiritual expression within the Pentecostal space. And third, a long-term shift in how leadership, loyalty, and ministry identity are understood in Nigeria. In other words, what began as a retirement has evolved into a redefinition, not only of two ministries, but of a generation's perception of spiritual leadership. A story still unfolding. As this story continues, one truth remains clear: the relationship between Bishop David Abioye and Bishop David Oyedepo has entered a new chapter. Not one marked by public confrontation, but by silent decisions, symbolic actions, and separate paths. The central tension behind this unfolding narrative remains unresolved. Is Abioye's decision driven by pure independence? Is it an expression of a new spiritual identity? Or does it reveal a deep wound, perhaps one carried quietly for years, now shaping the direction of his ministry? Nobody can say with certainty. What we are witnessing is not the end of a relationship, but a transition, a redefinition, a shift whose full impact will only become clear in the years to come. And so, we are left with a question that lingers in the background of every decision made, every program scheduled, and every silence maintained. Is Bishop Abioye forging a new spiritual identity, or responding to a long-buried wound? This is a story still unfolding. The dust has not settled, and the world is watching closely as both ministries continue to write the next chapter in one of the most remarkable spiritual partnerships in Nigeria's modern church history.